Welcome to a new addition to our YouTube channel called Let's Get Critical. So thank you so much, first of all, to the people who have been brave enough to take their work and put it in front of some idiot like me that can be mean in front of other people and tear it apart. But I will be constructive, I promise. All right, so we're gonna compare each image, and I'm gonna try and be critical on one of my images too, like actually critical. But it's hard to be critical on my images because, for one, I was there, I know all the limitations, and I already went through the process of thinking of these things critically to eliminate all the things I would criticize. So I don't know which image Tim has picked for me to be critical on my own, but we'll see. So we're gonna compare by composition, light, editing, and feel. 4 things. We're going to compare each one of those each time to each image. Without further ado, let's jump right into it. I'll start with one of my own images that I'll be critical of. So, what would I do differently in this image? The things that I'd criticize that are making the image come up just a tiny bit short at this point. I shot this maybe 2 years ago, but if you look at this right here, that between the table and the bottom of the cabinet, that's a really tight triangle coming into the side of that there. That's hard, but I also know that it was we didn't have a lot of room. Now I could maybe ask Tim to shrink that table in post, but it's pretty tight over here as well. But that feels really tight. I probably should have moved the table back towards camera a little bit if possible. Let's see, what else? We use strobe off the ceiling, I know, to kind of bounce off the ceiling and fill in these areas that would be blown out on those windows on the left. And I think that looks nice. I don't know that I necessarily like this direct light coming in. I'm not a big fan of direct light coming into images unless it's like a bathroom or a kitchen shot. But if I had to do this over, honestly, I'd probably try and pick a time where the light wasn't coming directly in and creating all those high contrast areas. What else? Let's see. This wire up here is a little, I don't like how it's fading off to the right, but not a huge deal. I think maybe this, I don't like that this painting here is so close to the window. I maybe would, were I to go back, I'd take these photos out. I'd style that side table differently there. I'd take that painting and probably in post enlarge it and make it the only thing there and have maybe not even any table back there. And then I'd also bring this orange painting down a bit. I think this little thing behind the chair there is a little distracting, and this thing to the left of the chair there is a little distracting. Once I get into it, I can kind of be critical of my own stuff too. This is great. Whatever's under this plant here seems too big. I would have found something else smaller to do that. And there's something behind that wooden thing there as well, that vase type thing. I have a hard time with how close the end of the steps are here to the side of the couch. If they were a little bit further back, that'd be nice. So those are the things in the composition that I'd look at. Now, it's good that we see sky before these shade implements outside are hitting the bottom part of that window. We have separation there. This triangle right there being on the end of that shade element isn't great, but sometimes you have to pick the lesser of all the evils. What else compositionally? I don't like that we see just the next part of this chair, just a tiny bit right there. Probably should have like leaned those chairs back and pulled them in under the table to get rid of that. I don't know, maybe that's enough criticism at this point. But that compositionally, those are things I would have worked on. Also, I probably would have tried to have put more, now I would put more black sheets over all the things in the living room here to make less of a reflection in all the glass there. I think if we could have worked on getting less reflection in the glass there, that would have looked a lot better. And by lighting just the ceiling and putting black cloth over those things, we would have had a better reflection or less reflection over there. So, okay, so as far as light goes, I kind of already went out of turn and talked about that, but for lighting, I would have waited until the sun was like directly overhead or just not coming in here, and I think it would have been a more calming image. So to not have that direct light coming in, I think would feel nicer. Now, what you could do is put sheets completely over those windows on the outside, shoot it, and then shoot it without the sheets, and then you'd get the same effect, kind of. Now, I would probably do something like that. Now, the editing, again, to me, it comes back to I would have waited until that direct light was not coming in there, because then the editing, like I'm sure Tim had to do a lot of retouching here to blend the highlight to shadow, even though we bounced strobes and stuff off the ceiling. Oh, I just saw one more thing. In the editing, I should have caught this and asked Tim to do it, was get that contrast difference or reflection in the photo picture, whatever there on the right picture, to even out. There's that vertical line going through it. So yeah, editing, I just would have shot at a different time, so it would have had a different feel. But as far as the editing goes here, I think Tim did a really good job. Feels very natural light, similar color temperature throughout. So I don't have a lot of critical feedback on that. I think towards the end of this, to the right side of this cabinet, where it comes close to that dark fireplace implement, I would have darkened just a little bit, because even if that's the same shade all the way across, it's going to look a little brighter because it's next to that extremely dark fireplace. And so it just kind of looks like there's a little bit of glow on that wood from there, which there might actually be, but from an editing standpoint, it looks like it was just like a gradient selection or something. But I don't know what that was, but looking at it now, I would do that if I'm being super critical. All right, that lighting. Now, the feel of this image. Again, I'd come back to shooting this at a different time of day. I don't like that light coming right in there. I mean, I know it speaks of being a bright place and the sunlight, but as far as the busyness of the image, it creates too much busyness, in my opinion. So I don't like that. I like the feel that we have this light element overhead and the table below, and they kind of create foreground, and then the couch as the second element. Compositionally, again, you don't want to go, if you go too high, the image becomes very informational, and if you stay lower, it gets a little bit better feel to it. Now, I always hate shooting into the back of couches, because you just get this big back of couch, and what we did here to break that up is we got as low as we could, bringing those chairs up into the couch, while also then throwing this blanket over the back of the couch to break that up, which helps. But shooting this living room, that's how it was arranged and designed, and we didn't have a lot of opportunity to go outside of that. So that was kind of the limitation. But feel of the image, I think is nice, because you have these windows. The architecture is nice to me, so the feel of the image is already kind of there. And then very bright space, the feeling's nice there. Things are fairly well organized in here, even though it was a difficult arrangement to get that. We have some images from a different angle that I think actually read a little bit better, because we weren't shooting into the back of the couch. So the feel to me on this is really nice because of the architecture, the glass, and the bright feel of the image, and the consistency of color temperature, which are all very important. But the composition, styling of the furniture and everything, now that I look at it, I'm fairly critical of. So that's me being very critical of an image that we shot probably 3 or so years ago. I'm not sure, somewhere around there. And there's a lot that I do different now. So fair take, I guess. All right, so now we can get into the first image that someone else offered up for me to be critical of. This image is from Ben Nicholson. So Ben Nicholson has photographed what looks like a mill apartment. We get a lot of these in New England, mill apartments. First thing, okay, composition. I think this looks better with the left and right of the image starting to be cropped out. This is a very narrow space, and I think you're going to be better off shooting this space with more top to bottom, like as a vertical image, a little more than a horizontal, because as soon as you go horizontal, you're running into walls. So you have a lot of big blank wall forcing you, holding the right side of the image. And then on the left side, again, tons of blank wall. Now, I would have probably approached this a little more straight on and done a top and bottom of image and probably shot it with a 45 to 24 tilt shift to compress it as much as possible. I would have, compositionally as in styling, that I would have moved things around in here. I probably would have moved this chest behind the stairs there out. It just is adding to the busyness. I probably would have moved that little table out, probably kept the lamp, but I would have shot this straight on looking into the kitchen. I definitely would have either turned those lights off and balanced everything in post, or what I probably would have done is put a strobe in there, bounce it off the ceiling, and use that light so it's a consistent color temperature to the natural light that's coming from behind camera. And then upstairs as well, that real kind of yellow against this neutral white that you have, really, it starts to look like a little bit of like someone sprayed yellow all over inside there. What's going on? Yeah, so I'd remove the fire hydrant in there, and I'd probably remove that little thing there, the kind of drink glass, whatever that is. And maybe have put it over on the right side of the counter there. So compositionally, those are the major critiques I have. I would have probably shot this straight on, a little more vertical to avoid the walls on either side. Lighting, I would have gone with consistent color temperatures, so we didn't have this very yellow against the more natural color. But I know it would have been hard because the majority of the light here would have been coming from behind camera, and that never feels nice. So I would have shot this straight on, and I would have used strobes off the ceiling, both top and bottom, and used that. I would have used that light layer to paint in all of the kitchen and everything else blending into the natural light and the second floor loft there. But I would bring in the ceiling just from the natural light exposure. And then I'd do a layer where you have the incandescent lights on, but I would only paint in just the light fixture itself. So you kind of get the feeling that the light that you bring in from the strobe is actually the light coming from those light fixtures. So composition, light, editing, again, I would have selected out a lot more of that yellow in there. And this vase on the lower right, I would have brought the exposure down on that a little bit. What do we got going on there? We see the window in reflection. Interesting. I would have edited out kind of like all the switches and all the busyness, the fire extinguisher, the switches and everything back there, the switches over here. I would have made this, what is that? I would have made this drawing of the Eiffel Tower on the left. I would have made it huge in post and just moved it over to the left to take up some of that wall. I would have taken out that plug and would have worked on the color temperature. I would have taken the AC unit there out. What else? And just the light fixture behind the stairs there. And then we'll generally try. Ooh, that's a no there. This being right on the edge of the couch, the couch foot being right on the edge of the blue carpet there is there's a lot of tension there. So if you have that either onto that by a good 3-4 inches or completely off of it. Also the same with this little triangle below that side table. So that's a lot of criticism there. The feel of this, honestly, I still, having those walls on either side and not seeing any windows, and feeling like the majority of the light is coming from behind you, makes you feel like you're going down a tunnel. So I would, next time, if you go back and shoot this again, Ben, I would have more strobe down at the end of this apartment that creates a little more light coming at you. That way you feel like you're moving towards the light rather than looking away from it. So, and the feel, I think, would also be better if you had a little bit more vertical image top to bottom. So, but overall, the editing where the color temperatures are the same are really nice, but I think there's just a lot to be done that is very easily done. Also, I would have evened out these photos here on the right side of the hallway. They're uneven. But yeah, I think doing those things would make this an even better image. So I also probably would have pulled this rug back from the table. It's like, for some reason, encroaching on that. So I would have pulled that back a little bit and given that some space to breathe. So that's me being harsh, giving like all the criticism I can, but overall, I think this is a great starting point. There's just a couple things that you could do different there and make this an even better image. So thank you again, Ben Nichols, for being brave enough to put your images before someone who's going to criticize them in front of a bunch of other people. I think that's a really good trait to have, and it only speaks to how you're going to continue to improve at what you're doing, and you're already doing a great job. So thank you so much, Ben. And tune in for our next Getting Critical. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.